In one night, the largest navy China had ever assembled burned to nothing. Not from a storm, not from a bigger army meeting it in open water. It burned because one man wrote a letter, and everyone who read it believed a lie. 208 CE, the Yangtze River, near a cliff called Chibi, Red Cliffs. On one side, Cao Cao, the most powerful warlord in China, commanding somewhere between 220,000 and possibly over 800,000 men by some ancient counts. Historians still argue the number, but every version agrees on one thing. It was the largest force ever assembled to unify China under a single ruler. On the other side, an alliance that shouldn't exist. Sun Quan and Liu Bei, two warlords who hated each other almost as much as they feared Cao Cao, combining barely 50,000 men to stop him. By every measure available to anyone standing on that river in 208 CE, this war was already over. Cao Cao's fleet alone outnumbered the entire Allied army. Now watch what happens. By the following dawn, Cao Cao's navy, the thing that was supposed to end this war in a single night, will be ash floating on the river. And the man who destroys it will do it by convincing Cao Cao's own commanders that he was switching sides. How do you burn the largest fleet in Chinese history using nothing but a letter, some kindling, and one afternoon of wind? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how. To understand why Cao Cao had over 200,000 men on this river, you need to understand what he had already done in the north. By 208 CE, Cao Cao had spent nearly 2 decades unifying northern China through relentless campaigns, defeating rival after rival, until he controlled more territory than any warlord since the fall of the Han Dynasty. The south, the lands ruled by Liu Biao, and beyond that, Sun Quan's territory along the Yangtze, was the last major obstacle standing between Cao Cao and total control of China. Liu Biao died before Cao Cao's army arrived. His successor surrendered without a fight, handing over an enormous fleet of warships along with the province. Overnight, Cao Cao went from having almost no navy to commanding one of the largest fleets in Chinese history, and he barely had to fight for it. That fleet is what made him confident enough to threaten Sun Quan directly. "Send me your surrender or send me your army." Cao Cao's messenger tells Sun Quan's court. There will not be a third message. Inside Sun Quan's council chamber, the argument is immediate and brutal. "We surrender." One advisor says, "He has more men than we could ever raise. Fighting him means the end of everything." "Fighting him wrong means the end of everything," answers Zhou Yu, Sun Quan's naval commander. "His army is enormous. It is also northern. They don't know riverboats. Half of them are already sick. His own scouts can't hide that from us." Sun Quan looks between them for a long moment. Then he draws his sword and strikes the corner of his table clean off. Anyone who speaks of surrender again can explain it to this table. The alliance with Liu Bei is sealed within days. Liu Bei's strategist, Zhuge Liang, personally negotiates it, understanding exactly what both sides already know. Neither Sun Quan nor Liu Bei survives Cao Cao alone. Together, they might. Combined, the Allied force numbers somewhere around 50,000 men. Cao Cao's army, even accounting for exhaustion and disease working through his ranks, still outnumbers them by a staggering margin. The two fleets meet first in a smaller skirmish upriver, and it goes badly for Cao Cao. His northern soldiers are not sailors, and many of them are seasick before the fighting even starts. He pulls back to the northern bank at Chibi to regroup, and here he makes the decision that will define the entire battle. To stop his men from getting seasick on the unfamiliar water, Cao Cao orders his ships chained and lashed together in massive linked formations, creating something closer to a floating platform than a fleet. It solves the immediate problem. His soldiers can stand steady. They can march between ships, almost like solid ground. Zhou Yu, watching from across the river, sees something else entirely. He's tied his own fleet together, Zhou Yu says, studying the formation. If one ship burns, they all burn. An officer beside him, Huang Gai, has already reached the same conclusion. Then we burn them. But he'll never let a fire ship get close enough. Not after the last skirmish. Not a fire ship, Huang Gai answers. A surrender. The plan is simple, and it depends entirely on Cao Cao's own confidence being real. Huang Gai will write to Cao Cao, offering to defect, claiming the alliance is fracturing, that he sees the war is already lost, that he wants to switch sides before it's too late. To make the letter believable, he arranges to be publicly and severely punished in front of the entire Allied camp, staged as punishment for insubordination, ensuring word of his disgrace reaches Cao Cao's spies within days. Cao Cao receives the letter. His advisors are split. It could be a trick, one warns. Everyone in that camp knows Huang Gai was beaten nearly to death in front of witnesses. Cao Cao answers, "You don't fake that kind of humiliation to sell a lie. Let him come." It is, in hindsight, the single costliest assumption of Cao Cao's career. On the appointed night, Huang Gai sails toward Cao Cao's fleet with a squadron of ships, the agreed signal of his defection clearly displayed. What Cao Cao's lookouts cannot see, in the dark and at a distance, is what's actually loaded onto those ships. Dry reeds, kindling, and oil, packed below deck and disguised beneath ordinary cargo. There's one more thing Zhou Yu and Huang Gai have been waiting for, something outside anyone's direct control: the wind. For most of the season, the wind on the Yangtze near Chibi blows from the northwest, which would push any fire directly back toward the Allied fleet instead of Cao Cao's. But on this particular night, the wind shifts. A southeasterly wind picks up, blowing hard and steady, directly toward the linked northern fleet. The wind has turned, Zhou Yu says, watching the flags on his own mast snap around. Signal Huang Gai, now. Huang Gai's ships close the distance, still flying the recognition signal of a defecting fleet. Cao Cao's sailors watch them approach without alarm. This is exactly what they were told to expect. Then, at the closest possible range, Huang Gai's crews light the cargo and abandon ship into small boats trailing behind, and the burning vessels drive straight into the heart of Cao Cao's chained fleet. Something's wrong. Those ships are burning. A lookout shouts. They're not supposed to be burning. Signal the fleet to scatter. There is nowhere to scatter to. The ships are lashed together exactly as Cao Cao ordered, and the wind Zhou Yu was waiting for is now driving the flames from ship to ship faster than any crew can cut the chains apart. Fire leaps across linked hulls in minutes. Panic spreads faster than the fire itself. Behind the burning fire ships, the Allied fleet attacks in full force, striking a navy that is now on fire, chained together, and unable to maneuver. On the northern bank, Cao Cao watches his fleet, the fleet that was supposed to end this war in a single night, burn from the water up into a wall of flame visible for miles. Order a retreat, Cao Cao says. There is no argument left to make. What follows is not a battle anymore. It's a collapse. Cao Cao's army, already weakened by disease and now stripped of its naval advantage, retreats overland through swampy, difficult terrain along what would become known as the Huarong Trail. Allied forces harass the retreating army the entire way. Thousands die from combat, disease, exhaustion, and the terrain itself before what remains of Cao Cao's force reaches safety in the north. Historians still debate the exact casualty figures. Some ancient sources claim losses in the hundreds of thousands, though modern historians consider the true Northern Army and its losses considerably smaller than the most dramatic ancient accounts suggest. What isn't debated is the outcome. Cao Cao's bid to unify all of China under his rule, in a single campaign, in a single year, is over. He retreats north and never again attempts a full-scale invasion of the south on this scale. The victory at Red Cliff secures Sun Quan's control of the southeast and gives Liu Bei room to establish his own territory in the southwest. China, which Cao Cao came within one battle of unifying, instead splits into three competing states: Wei in the north, Wu in the southeast, Shu in the southwest, beginning the era history remembers as the Three Kingdoms, a division that will define Chinese politics for the next several decades. Huang Gai survives his own scheme. Zhou Yu becomes one of the most celebrated commanders in Chinese history for a battle he won without ever needing more ships than his enemy. Only a letter, a beating, and a wind he was patient enough to wait for. And Cao Cao, the man who came closer than anyone in a generation to ruling all of China in a single stroke, spends the rest of his life ruling a fractured north instead, because he trusted a surrender that was never real on a night when the wind decided to change.